Hello everybody and welcome back to Stink King Sports. I'm your host Nicholas Stink King, and today I have my 2022-2023 regular season predictions, records, actually my entire season predictions that I have the playoffs included in this video as well. Basically how I think the 2022-2023 season of the NFL will play out. So let's just hop right into this. We're going to go division by division listing where each team will rank. Then we'll go to the playoff picture. So let's just start off with the NFC. And more specifically, my NFC East. In last place, I have the Giants coming at 4-13. New coach. Not a real big believer in Daniel Jones. Don't see how they made a lot of upgrades on the defensive side of the football. I have the Giants sitting at 4-13. In third place, I have the Commanders at 7-9. Yes, they got Carson Wentz. I think they will have an improved offensive team. The defense, especially the linebacking and secondary core, is still a question for me. Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera are on the hot seat, it seems. And I don't think they come through this year in a challenging NFC East with teams like the Dallas and Eagles that I have ahead of them. So I have Washington falling at 7-9. In second place, I have the Dallas Cowboys, who will barely miss the playoffs at 10-7. I feel like this is Mike McCarthy's last year as the Dallas football head coach. They lost some key defensive pieces, got rid of Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup will be out for a few weeks, and CeeDee Lamb's going to really have to step up. They have a tough schedule. I just don't know how Dallas will capitalize this year in a tough NFC, which seems to have a lot of teams on the brink of 10-7, 9-8. So I think Dallas will fall to 10-7 in the first place, at the Philadelphia Eagles at 11-6. Major defensive upgrades. They receive A.J. Brown. It all really depends on Jalen Hurts. I'm not the biggest Jalen Hurts believer, but I think after a successful season last year in which they made the playoffs and a great roster around Jalen Hurts, the Eagles will find a way to eke out 11 games and finish 11-6 atop of the division. Moving on to the NFC West, I have Seattle falling to 3-13. Not a big believer in Drew Lock or Geno Smith. Yes, they still have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, but their defense is extremely hampered with the loss of Bobby Wagner and others. I'm not a big fan of Seattle in the rebuilding stage. They lost Russell Wilson, who has been the heart of their team for the past decade. So I have the Seahawks falling to 3-13. In third place, I have the Cardinals at 7-9. Yes, they just re-signed Kyler Murray to a massive contract. However, I'm not the biggest believer in the Cardinals as a roster. They always seem to fade. Kyler Murray came off a horrible performance against the Rams in the playoffs last year. They'll be without Hopkins for the first 8 weeks. And I don't think Marquise Brown will be able to carry this offense, especially after losing Christian Kirk. Not a big fan of the running game. Kyler Murray's always hampered with injuries. And the defense I'm just not a big fan of when you look across that division. So I have the Cardinals falling at 7-9. In second place, I have the 49ers, who will be led by Trey Lance, it seems, at 10-7. I'm not the biggest believer in Trey Lance. I'm a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan. I feel like he offers you a safe quarterback option. I think the 49ers have a fantastic roster around him. They have Brandon Ayuk coming back, who is supposed to be a big target, who has been performing in camp extremely well. I love the defense with Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. I'm a big fan of this 49ers team. I have them at 10-7. Regardless if Trey Lance plays poorly, I think Jimmy Garoppolo could help this team on track. They have at least one good quarterback and a quarterback that's supposed to be very good, a former first-round pick. So it should be an interesting 49ers team to watch, but I think they fall at 10-7. And in first place in the NFC West, I have the defending Super Bowl champion Rams at 12-5. The Rams have a very strong offense. They have Cam Akers, Matt Stafford, Henderson, Robinson, and of course Cooper Kupp. You also have Tyler Higbee. Yes, they were hampered. They lost Andrew Whitworth on the offensive line, and they've lost some defensive pieces, but I still think the Rams, coached by Sean McVay, great coach team, will finish at 12-5 atop the division. I have not lost faith in the defending Super Bowl champions, especially after Thursday night. Moving on to the NFC North. In last place, I have the Bears at 5-12. I'm not a fan of Justin Fields, and I'm not a fan of his footwork, of his arm strength. He looked pretty piss poor last year. The roster around him is mediocre at best. Just not a very good Bears team. I have them falling at 5-12. At 6-11. And in third place, I have the Detroit Lions, an improved roster under Dan Campbell. I think Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown will take steps towards a better offensive season this year. DeAndre Swift, obviously a huge weapon on the offensive side of the football. And rookie Aiden Hutchinson, I think, will perform well this year. Detroit is on the right path. I think they improve their record this year and go 6-11. In second place, this may shock some of you, I have the Green Bay Packers at 10-7. They're going to be without Allen Lazard week 1. We're not sure exactly who will fill that number 1 receiver spot in Aaron Rodgers' offense. Rodgers traditionally seems to have a guy, whether it be Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, or Donald Driver. It's going to be a tough season for the Packers. Yes, they have a deep running back room and probably the best defense in the NFL, but I'm not sure how that passing game will work this year, especially against a number 1 schedule. So I have the Packers falling at 10-7 and a second place team in the NFC North. And in first place, I have the Minnesota Vikings at 11-6. They get new offensively minded head coach Kevin O'Connell. They have great offensive wide receiving weapons in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. They have a decent defense with Harrison Smith manning up at the strong safety position. And they have Dalvin Cook, who I'm a big fan of when he's healthy. I mean, Dalvin Cook is just bursts on the scene, completely explosive running back when he's healthy. I think Kevin O'Connell will do wonders with this roster and put the Vikings at 11-6. Finally, the NFC South, where I have in last place my worst team in the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not a fan of Marcus Mariota. I'm not a fan of the roster they have around him without Calvin Ridley. Kyle Pitts and Drake London are interesting weapons. However, I'm just not a fan of this Falcons team, especially their defense. They have nobody on there. And I just think they're going to have a hard time winning some football games this year. I have them falling at 3-14. At 6-11 with the addition of Baker Mayfield, I have the Carolina Panthers falling in third place. A very good defense, but they're going to be hampered by the quarterback position all year. I think this is Matt Rule's last year as the Panthers head coach. In second place, I have the New Orleans Saints at 10-7. I think Jameis Winston was playing very well last year before he got injured. You get Michael Thomas back. You add Jarvis Landry. Yes, you lose Sean Payton, but I don't think the scheme on offense was changed that much. You keep the same defense led by the likes of Demario Davis and Malcolm Jenkins and Marshawn Lattimore. I really like this Saints team. I think they have a very good offensive line. I think their running back room with Kamara and Ingram will prove to be difficult for other defenses to stop. I just think their offense has a lot of potential. I think their team has a lot of potential, and I had them falling at 10-7. In first place in the NFC South, I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 12-5. Yes, there's a lot of questions revolving the injury bug, but you have great offensive weapons in Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, Tom Brady, obviously. The offensive line will be hampered, but Tristan Wirfs is a great tackle, and I had the utmost faith that he will protect Brady on the right side of the football. And their defense, still very solid. You know, you still have key weapons on the defensive side of the football. You still have Ndamukong Suh. You still have other linebackers and safeties to clog that run game. I think the passing game will be a little bit interesting this year. I think the cornerback position and Tampa Bay will be hampered. But I do like the Buccaneers this year to finish at 12-5 atop the NFC South. So let's go to the NFC playoff picture real fast. At the first seed, I have the Buccaneers at 12-5. The second seed, I have the Rams at 12-5. The third seed, I have the Vikings at 11-6. The fourth seed, I have the Eagles at 11-6. The fifth seed, I have the 49ers at 10-7. The sixth seed, I have the Packers at 10-7. And the seventh seed, it's just sneaking in over the Cowboys, the Saints at 10-7. So let's go to Wild Card Weekend in the NFC. In the first game of the weekend, I have the number 7 Saints upsetting the number 2 Rams. I just think the Rams looked a little bit soft on Thursday night. Yes, I said I wouldn't let Thursday night affect my predictions for the year, but I just couldn't help but see what seemed like a weak defensive front for the Rams. They didn't seem to get any pressure, any push on the Buffalo Bills. And I just think the Saints have a very solid roster. I think Jameis will take steps forward, and that defense will be too much for the Rams to prove. Once again, Matt Stafford did lead the NFL in interceptions last year, and he should have lost the NFC Championship game had Jaquiski Tartt known how to catch a ball. So I think the Saints will upset the Rams here. I'm not the biggest Stafford fan. You all know that. I think Jameis will come away with the win here in Los Angeles. Not a great sports city either. I think it will be a home game for the Saints in SoFi Stadium. I have the number 3 Vikings beating the number 6 Packers at home. I just think the Vikings are the better team. I think they have a better roster. I think they have a better offense. And I think they have the better coach. And I know we haven't seen him coach, but I like Kevin O'Connell. I like what's been said about him. Give me the Vikings to beat the Packers in the wild card weekend. And then I had the 49ers, a great defensive team, beating the Eagles. I just don't like Jalen Hurts, and I think he's going to show up in the playoffs like he did last year. Piss poor. I like the 49ers to win that game outright in Philadelphia. I don't think it'll be close. In the divisional, I have the number 1 Bucks beating their division rivals, the New Orleans Saints, at home. Tom Brady's last ride. He's not going to go out to a 7-seed team. And then I had the 49ers beating the number 3 Vikings on the road in the game of the year. I think Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, whoever may be quarterback, I think it will be Trey Lance, to put that out there, for the entire year. I think his ability, his arm strength, and his mobility outside the pocket will prove too much for Minnesota's defense, and the weapons they have with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk will just prove too much for a Minnesota team, where it's too early for them to be an NFC Championship bound team. I had the 49ers going back to the NFC Championship this year to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In the NFC Championship game, I have the 49ers beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a lot of injuries in Tampa. Going to be a hampered offensive line, and when they play a great defensive front seven like the 49ers, it will be too much. I'm a big fan of Nick Bosa. I think Brady's getting up there in age. There's been a lot of drama around the Buccaneers camp this year, and I just think Trey Lance will be too much to handle for the Bucs defense, which has lost some pip in its step. So I'm going to pick the 49ers to head on to the Super Bowl, something they should have done last year. I think it's their year. They have a very complete roster. So give me the 49ers in the Super Bowl from the NFC side. Let's go to the AFC. In the AFC East, starting at the bottom of the division, I have the New York Jets at 6-11. I think they have a good roster. I think Zach Wilson, when he comes back, will prove to be an average quarterback. I think they're an interesting team to watch. I think they have a decent roster around Zach Wilson. I'm not a big fan of Robert Saleh as a head coach. I'm more of an offensively minded head coach person. However, it should be interesting to see what the Jets do this year in Zach Wilson's second year. In third place in the AFC East, I have the New England Patriots at 6-11. Not great wide receivers. Mac Jones is a safe quarterback option. They lose some pieces on defense, and they don't really have a pure offensive coordinator, as Matt Patricia will be calling the offensive plays for New England. I think that's just quite weird. So I'm going to have the Patriots fall at 6-11, a defensively strength team and an offensive team that lacks innovation. At 9-8, I had the Miami Dolphins. Yes, they added Tyreek Hill. I think it's Tua's year to prove himself. They have a good defense, but I think Tua will hamper this team. Tua turned the ball over. Obviously, it's the joke going around the NFL fan base right now. I'm not a big believer in Tua. I think his arm strength is questionable, and I think they will fall at 9-8 in a division where they have to play Buffalo twice. And obviously, at first place, I had the Super Bowl favorite Buffalo Bills at 13-4. I mean, you just have a great team around Josh Allen, a fantastic defense. You have Stephon Diggs, who's just an absolute top 3-4 receiver in the NFL. Give me the Bills to fall at 13-4 at first place atop the division. In the AFC North, coming in last place, I have the Cleveland Browns. Without Deshaun Watson for the first 12 weeks, it's going to be hard for the Browns to scrape together some wins with Jacoby Brissett. I think the Browns will fall at 6-11, and next year you will see a revitalized Cleveland team. At 9-8, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers led by Mitch Trubisky. Not the biggest Mitch Trubisky fan. I think they have a good team, a good defense, but they will again struggle on the offensive side of the football with a quarterback who will prove to be mediocre or just slightly above average. At 10-7, I have the Cincinnati Bengals at second place, trying to repeat another Super Bowl berth. Joe Burrow, I'm a big fan of. They have a great wide receiver room. The defense is still in question. They've made some upgrades on the offensive line, but it traditionally seems that a team that goes to the Super Bowl and loses has a weakened season the following year, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the Bengals. I have them falling at 10-7. And at first place, I have the Baltimore Ravens at 11-6. The Ravens were 8-2 last year before they got hampered by the injury bug. I'm a big fan of Lamar Jackson, playing well in a contract year. Yes, they lose Marquise Brown, but their defense is still intense. They add Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. I'm a big fan of this Ravens team, led by John Harbaugh, who I think is a great coach. Give me the Ravens to win the division at 11-6. Moving on to the AFC South, I have the Texans falling at 4-13, led by Davis Mills. This roster is just not great. Yes, they have Brandon Cooks, but they have no running game and a very weak defense and a first-year head coach. And and it's not going to all come together in the first year. I have them falling at 4-13 at the bottom of the division. At third place, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 6-11. A much improved Jags team, a much improved Trevor Lawrence, you will see this year, led by Doug Peterson. You have Travis Etienne returning. You have Christian Kirk being signed, who will probably be the number one wide receiver on this team. And you have a better defense. I think the Jaguars will be an improved team this year. I think it will be a hard beat, but I don't think they will have the offensive firepower to come back late in games. I have them at 6-11. In second place, I have the number 1 seed last year in the AFC playoff picture, the Tennessee Titans, falling with a losing record at 8-9. I think without A.J. Brown, teams will be just planning and stacking 7 or 8 in the box to stop Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill will not be able to capitalize on the passing game mismatches. Give me the Tennessee Titans to fall at 8-9. Their defense is also just getting up there in age. They lose some pieces. They still have Kevin Byard and Jarrell Casey. I still have the Titans at 8-9. Finally, atop the division, I had the Matt Ryan-led Indianapolis Colts. They were hampered by Carson Wentz last year, but I think Matt Ryan will prove some leadership in this offense. Michael Pittman will take big steps forward. You have Jonathan Taylor, who had a great season last year, and you have a very good defense in Indianapolis with the likes of DeForest Buckner and Xavier Rhodes. I like the Colts this year at 11-6. Finally, in the most stacked division of football, the AFC West. Coming in last place, I have the Las Vegas Raiders at 9-8. They're going to score a lot of points this year with Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow. Their defense will just not be enough to stop the big boys. I have them falling at 9-8. In third place, I have the Broncos at 9-8 as well, just above the Raiders in head-to-head matchups in the division. I think Russell Wilson will help this Broncos team. I'm not sold on them. They are often hampered by the injury bug. This young wide receiving core will need to take big steps forward. But I do like a new head coach will have to form a cohesive group among these Broncos players. I do like their defense, adding Randy Gregory, but I had them falling at 9-8 in just a really tough division. In second place, I have the Los Angeles Chargers at 11-6. I'm not the biggest fan of Brandon Staley, but my God, do they have a roster around them. Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram on the defensive side of the football, Derwin James manning down that secondary. You have J.C. Jackson on that defensive side of the football. And then on the offensive side, you have Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and of course Justin Herbert, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL in my opinion. Just pure arm strength out of him. I have the Chargers at 11-6. And in first place, I have the Kansas City Chiefs at 13-4. Yes, they lose Tyreek Hill and Tyrann Mathieu. However, I still love Patrick Mahomes. I still love what the Chiefs are doing. And I still think the Chiefs will come atop their division at 13-4. I'm a big fan of Andy Reid as a head coach. I love what he's done in Kansas City. Give me the Chiefs at 13-4. Moving on to the AFC playoff picture, I have the Bills as the 1 seed at 13-4, the Chiefs as the 2 seed at 13-4, the Colts as the 3 seed at 11-6, the Ravens as the 4 seed at 11-6, the Chargers as the 5 seed at 11-6, the Bengals as the 6 seed at 10-7, and the Broncos as the 7 seed at 9-8. Going into Wild Card Weekend, I have the Chiefs beating the Broncos. I think Arrowhead will be too much for Russell Wilson and the Broncos. A young team. I think it is not their year quite yet. I think they need to make more defensive upgrades on the secondary side. Their run game is good with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Not good enough to beat Kansas City at home. I have the number 6 Bengals beating the 3 Colts. Again, I think we're going to see a repeat of Joe Burrow in the playoffs. He's a clutch performer. I'm not a big fan of postseason Matt Ryan, to say the least. I think the Bengals offense will prove too much for the Colts secondary in this game. Give me the Bengals on the road against the number 3 Colts. And then I have the Chargers beating the Ravens, and what I think will be a blowout. I'm a big fan of the Chargers this year. I think Lamar will continue to have his playoff woes, and I think the Chargers will move on to the divisional round of the playoffs. Round 2, I have the number 5 Chargers going into Arrowhead and defeating the Chiefs. I think the Chargers have the more complete defensive roster, the more complete roster in general, better offensive weapons. I think Herbert will prove too much for Mahomes, and the Chargers will take their spot atop the division favorites for the next season as they beat the Chiefs in the divisional round of the playoffs to move on to the AFC Championship game. And I think Joe Burrow's playoff run will end here against the Bills in Buffalo. I think Josh Allen, it is his year. I think it's the Bills roster. They have the most complete roster in football, and they will just prove too much for Cincinnati. Give me the Bills to beat the Bengals in what should have been the AFC Championship game last year. I had the Bills defense know how to play for 13 seconds of football. And then in the AFC Championship game, a great matchup between Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. I have Josh Allen coming on top. Once again, the Bills' most complete roster. They are the most bet team to win the Super Bowl this year. They are the highest. They are the most favorite team to win the Super Bowl this year at 6-1 odds. I think and it's rightfully so. The Bills are the best team in football right now. Their defense looks amazing. Von Miller, Tre'Davious White when he comes back. I mean, this is just a very intense Bills team led by Sean McDermott, who has done wonders with this Bills organization. Give me the Bills to move on to the Super Bowl. And in the Super Bowl, I have the Buffalo Bills led by Josh Allen and the San Francisco 49ers, who will be led by their defense and Trey Lance. And I think the Bills win this game. If I had to give you a score, I would say 28-14. I think the Bills completely hamper this 49ers team. And I think it won't be a close Super Bowl. I think the Bills are by far and away the best team in football. And in the MVP this year, I have 2 picks. I think the favorite, Josh Allen, is a little bit boring. That is who I have written down. I do think Josh Allen is a high contender to win the MVP. But as a dark horse, I have Kirk Cousins, who will thrive in a new offensive system led by Kevin O'Connell. So once again, Bills win the Super Bowl against the 49ers. A disappointing season for many teams, including the Cardinals, Packers, Raiders. Even the Chiefs and Broncos when you mention it, but I'm excited for this NFL season. It kicks off today with an NFL Sunday. Can't wait to turn on Red Zone and my Commanders to tune in as they hopefully beat the Jaguars. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.